Welcome to Forming Your LLC or DBA. My name is Spencer Field. I'm a business consultant here with the Michigan SBDC, a serial entrepreneur, and I am so excited that you are with us today. And the reason I'm excited is this. I believe that entrepreneurship is one of the best ways to solve problems in the world. And clearly, you're interested in entrepreneurship and solving problems. So I invite you to come on this journey with us today as we help maybe solve one of your problems, which is how to form an LLC or DBA. Should we get started? Come with me. Here's a quick introduction to what we're going to be working on today. So we're going to go through our little introductions here. We'll talk about what an LLC is, if you should have one or not. We're going to talk about how to manage your money. Turns out to be critically important when you're running a small business. We'll walk through your taxes, and we will then help you understand line by line what is in those articles of organization. We'll finally end up with a live Q&A, so keep those questions rolling in during the course of the workshop. The Michigan SBDC is funded through a cooperative agreement with the federal, state, and local funders. And what this really means, and this is important to be thinking about, is that the SBDC is not here to upsell you. We're not here to give you a free trial offer. This is not a lead generating tool for us. This is what we're paid to do by the federal and the state government. So we don't charge you for services. So if you are looking to continue taking a next step with the business and you want to work with one of 75 plus consultants all over the state of Michigan and you don't want to pay for it, the Michigan SBDC is the way to do that because you have already prepaid for all of these services with your taxpayer dollars. So this is your taxpayer money coming back to you. All right, let's get on with the show though. The Greater Washtenaw region is just one of the teams. I happen to be on this team, and here is our contact information. Feel free to reach out to any of us directly with questions you might have. During the webinar, we're going to have several polls. We do not put these up because we think that they're little cool, shiny tools to be using. We put these up because we actually use this poll data to decide whether or not we're going to reach out to you one-on-one. So when you see a poll, don't pick up the coffee, put down the popcorn, use your mouse or your phone and click an answer because that will help us engage with you better in the future. You'll also find all of the handouts for our webinar here in the sidebar. We have several PDFs with links and resources on how to file your LLC. We'll be talking about a lot of those resources today, so make sure you download that handout. Questions are a big part of this workshop. So if a question comes up, head over to the sidebar and type it into that question box. We'll be pulling from those questions during our live Q&A at the end, so let them roll. There are many entrepreneurial resources across the state of Michigan. If you're in the Greater Washtenaw region, the Entrepreneurship Center is one you should definitely take a look at. Finally, when we're looking at this workshop, you'll be receiving an email at the end. This email is what allows us to do this for free. So if you'd like this to keep being free, please go ahead and respond to the surveys in that email. You'll also see a quick evaluation at the end of our workshop today. It's just 3 questions. I'd request that you fill these out because we actually read these answers and change the workshop based on that. And finally, this is an important one because I get asked this question every time. Will you be receiving an email copy of the webinar to your inbox? The answer is 100% yes, you will. We'll have a video recording as well as all of the slides and all of the handouts. It sometimes takes a couple of hours, so be a little patient, but if you don't get it, please email us here and we will make sure that you get a copy of all of that. All right, there we go. So as we move into this next section, I just want to say that you're about to learn some really interesting stuff as you move to the next stage of your business. And we're going to be here to help you along the way. Also remember that you are entitled, as a Michigan resident, to free business consulting through the Michigan SBDC. With that, let's keep going.
Thank you, Spencer, and thank you for joining us today to learn a little bit more about LLCs. We're going to talk a little bit about bookkeeping and also some tax implications. My name is Shawn Priceley. I'm a senior business consultant with the SBDC, and my office is in the Greater Washtenaw region. So let's jump right in. I like to start out with this slide, and I know you're probably all thinking, oh, I hope the whole presentation doesn't have all of this information crammed into one slide. And I promise you that's not the case. But this is a slide from our Starting Your Own Business workshop. And as you can see in the highlighted yellow, step 6 is where you form your LLC or legal entity. There's a lot of steps before that, and I guess just kind of want to briefly touch on those to make sure that you're prepared and ready to go once you form your business. So I'm going to use Wendy Washtenaw as an example. So this is Wendy, and she wants to start a lawn mowing business. That was step one on the plan, or I'm sorry, on the slide prior. I'm sure you've all thought of a business idea already. Hopefully you're at least past step one. So step two is research. Wendy looked at the competition and determined there was room in the market for her business, and she was going to focus on small yards. So that was her niche, and it was going to be a little bit different than some of the competition. Before she started mowing, she did a startup cost analysis. So she determined what all the costs were going to be before she even mowed one lawn. She also determined her monthly budget and knew how many lawns she would need to mow before she made a profit. Step four, she had a business plan. So a lot of times you think of a business plan as all of this writing and this big book of information that you're never going to use again. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be much more simple and a lot more useful. So we can, in a business plan, we can talk about financial projections and cost of goods, overhead, just to determine what it will take to build a company and make some money doing it. Step five is team. So Wendy is the only person in her business, but she is going to need a team of people to help. She is going to need insurance, so she'll need an insurance agent. And because she focuses on lawns and not bookkeeping, she'll probably need a bookkeeper or an accountant to help her, at least to get her set up so she knows what she's doing as far as is keeping her financial records. Step six, that's when you form your legal structure. So there's, like I said, quite a few steps before that. I want to be sure that you've thought of all of that, and we at SBDC can help you understand all of those other steps. So there's a lot of different options for business legal structure, but today we're going to focus on a sole proprietorship versus an LLC. So Wendy here, she bought a lawnmower and she mowed her first lawn. She charged $25. She's now in business as a sole proprietor. Customers can write a check directly to her. They can give her cash. They can Venmo her. She can deposit it right into her personal checking account. She can spend it on her own personal needs. That's basically what a sole proprietor is. Wendy and her business are the same entity. So she may want to decide, or she may decide that she wants a name for her company, and she chooses Treetown Lawns. So she can file a DBA, or doing business as, in Washtenaw County where she lives, and then can conduct business under that name. But if she decides she wants to work in a different county, say Lenawee County, she can do that too, but she'll also have to file a DBA in Lenawee County as well. It costs $10, and it's good for about 5 years. So there are advantages. It's easy to form. Basically, she mows a lawn, she's in business. It's easy to maintain. Any cash she earns can be spent just any way she wants. It doesn't mean that she doesn't have to keep financial records when it comes to tax time, but she doesn't have to be diligent about keeping the records separate. And there's minimal startup costs. So the disadvantages. Owner has unlimited personal liability for debts and claims, which means Treetown Lawns, her house, and her car are all assets owned by Wendy. If Wendy were to get sued, all of her assets would be at risk. So, for example, Wendy mows over Mrs. Jones's prized peonies. Mrs. Jones may sue her for damages. If Wendy's business hasn't earned enough income, she may go after her personal property as well. So there's no separation there. Also, Wendy does not have exclusive rights to the name Treetown Lawns in the state. So no one can form a DBA under the name Treetown Lawns in Washtenaw County, but it wouldn't prevent them from forming an LLC with that name or with filing a DBA in the county surrounding Washtenaw County. So limited liability companies are created by filing articles of organization with the state. The cost is $50 if you do it yourself, and we can certainly walk you through the steps to do that. They can be submitted online and usually take less than 2 weeks to be approved and returned to you. The articles need to be renewed yearly, and that renewal is sent to you in the mail, the address that you put on file. So the owner is not an employee of the business. You're considered a member of the business. So Wendy may want to start the business with a partner. So both Wendy and William would be considered members of Treetown Lawns. So the advantages. The one that stands out the most, and it's probably the reason you're here today, it's because you have that limited personal liability for debts and claims, meaning the LLC creates a wall of protection between Wendy personally and Treetown Lawns LLC. It offers flexible tax elections, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more later, and it's easier to establish and maintain than a corporation. So the disadvantages. Some say it's more complex to establish and maintain than a sole proprietorship, simply because Wendy will have to manage her business affairs and personal affairs separately. It may not be as attractive as a corporation to sophisticated outside investors like venture capitalists and private equity firms. These types of investors certainly wouldn't get involved in a business like Wendy's. They're looking for more high-tech firms with intellectual property and massive risk and growth potential. If you're the type of business, or you think you're that type of business, looking for venture capital, we can certainly guide you to the right people. Many people ask us about forming an umbrella company and having many entities underneath. The most important factor to think about is liability. In this example, Wendy forms Wendy Washtenaw LLC. She has several different business ideas, and she wants each of them to have her own identity. So she has Wendy's Weeds and Fab Fertilization, Lovely Landscaping, and Treetown Lawns. She can file assumed names for each of these entities. So an assumed name would be a nickname for Wendy Washtenaw LLC. So assumed names are nicknames for LLCs. Because the assets and risks are almost the same for all four of these entities, it's not really necessary to form separate LLCs for each one of them. So customers in this situation can write a check to Fab Fertilization or Wendy Washtenaw LLC because they're basically the same company. But if Wendy's business ideas were completely different, in this example, we have a car wash, a lawn mowing service, and a florist, she may want to form separate LLCs. Each of these business ideas have completely different assets and risks. In this case, there really isn't a reason for the umbrella company because the umbrella company doesn't own anything. Remember though, Wendy will be required to have 3 different bank accounts and 3 different sets of books in this example. She cannot commingle funds with each of these businesses. Here's another example. Wendy buys a building where she has her office and she can store and repair equipment. She decides to form a company called WW Holdings LLC. This company owns the building and earns money by charging rent to Treetown Lawns LLC. Because the building is a significant asset, she wants to keep it separate from any liability incurred by her lawn mowing business. Back to Mrs. Jones' priced peonies. If Mrs. Jones claims the peonies are truly priceless and Wendy has an LLC owning the building and the business, all of these assets are at risk. So if she has multiple LLCs, Treetown Lawns assets would be at risk, but not the holding company which owns the building. Choosing a name. The proposed name should be distinguishable from the name of other Michigan corporations and LLCs. We can send you a link to check and see if your LLC name is available. But keep in mind, there can be a company called Treetown Lawns LLC, but there can also be a company called Treetown Lawns 1 LLC. So really think about that when you're deciding on a name and when you do the name search, that it really can stand out from another company. Once you submit the articles, the name must be approved to ensure that it does not contain prohibited words or conflict with an existing entity. For example, if Wendy chose the name Treetown Green Therapy LLC, the application may be denied because it could be construed as a service that needs a license. The name should not conflict with another that is protected by a trademark or service mark. So if she was calling herself Lawns R Us, this is an old example because Toys R Us doesn't exist anymore, but if she chose Lawns R Us, she wouldn't be able to use that name because R Us is a trademarked name by the company that owns Toys R Us. Wendy will also want to check and make sure that there's a website domain name available, and if she's going to use social media, that she can have an @ name that makes sense and is easy to find. So conducting business, the first thing you want to do is get an EIN number or an employee identification number. The EIN identifies the business for federal and state tax purposes. It's basically the social security number for your business. Sole proprietors and single member LLCs without employees may use the owner's social security number, but the EIN takes a few minutes to apply for. There's no cost to it. And if you think about it, wouldn't you rather use an EIN than your social security number when you're conducting business? But it has to be obtained if you're going to have employees. If the LLC is formed with more than one member, or it's formed as a corporation. So an S Corp would be an example of that. It is recommended to have an operating agreement for single member LLCs. Having a well drawn out operating agreement can help establish that your business is operating as an entity separate from yourself. So if you are forming a partnership with someone, so a business with two people that's not an LLC, you should have a partnership agreement. And then for an LLC, definitely have an operating agreement for those members, 2 members, 3 members, whatever number of people are involved in the organization. So basically, Wendy and William in the operating agreement need to decide the business financial and financial functions, and who owns what percentage of the company, how income and losses are divided, what happens if one wants to leave the company or if they want to add another member. Making these decisions now when you're excited about the new venture will serve you well if in the future things become less agreeable. We oftentimes see businesses dissolve, and without an operating agreement, it can be quite a disaster to try to separate those partners and make everybody happy. If you decide that in advance, it's much easier to divide the company or close the company. This is a document that you and your business partner sign. You can have, I would recommend having an attorney look it over, but it's not something that you need to file anywhere. It's something that each of you has a copy of. So if in the future, hopefully it won't happen, but if in the future you have a disagreement, you can refer to the operating agreement and understand what it has specified for solving that disagreement. If you're providing a service for a fee, you may need a sales contract. Even retail businesses need to think about return policies. Make sure they are well thought through before engaging in business. And lastly, if you're going to have employees, you're going to want to have an employee handbook. Make sure that your employees understand the operation of the business. So we can also help you with that kind of assistance as well. You've probably heard the phrase piercing the corporate veil. What that means is, as long as you conduct your business by the rules of the LLC, you maintain a corporate veil or wall of protection. Piercing the veil would mean that you're not following the rules. So what are the rules? 1, get and keep a separate bank account and accounting system for the business entity. The only time money is transferred from owner to business is by an owner draw. The business writes a check or transfers money to Wendy Washtenaw, and Wendy deposits it in her personal account. If she wants to invest more money in the business, she transfers from her personal account to Treetown Lawns. She doesn't skip a step by maybe making her mortgage payment with her business funds or buying a new piece of equipment with her personal cash. You want to keep 2 separate detailed business records, and you do not want to use business assets for personal use. You want to also always identify the business entity when acting in the business capacity. So for example, if Wendy's going to sign a document, say she purchases a lawnmower on credit and she's going to sign that document, she wants to sign it as Wendy Washtenaw member. Or if she chooses president, vice president, if there's multiple members, they might have different titles. If she's going to order business cards, she's going to want to have her name, Wendy Washtenaw member, and her business name is Treetown Lawns LLC. And you also want to maintain your corporate filings. Like I mentioned before, it costs $25 to renew, and that renewal is sent to you at the beginning of each year. So managing the money. So Wendy found a bank and opened a business checking account. She spoke with the bank she banks with personally to make sure it was business and startup friendly. So not all banks are created equal. Some of the larger banks consider you a startup for the first 3 years. So if in the future you're going to need a loan, they may not be good choices. Sometimes smaller banks like credit unions might be good choices because they're a little bit more friendly to startups, and it's a little bit easier to create a relationship with that institution. So if you do need money down the road for like a big landscaping project in Wendy's case, or a new larger piece of equipment, you have an established relationship and you can address that lending institution for your funding, and they know what you're doing and if you're credit worthy. She also obtained a business credit card. Now when she goes out and makes purchases, she's not using her personal card, and it's a lot easier to keep track of transactions. Next, she needs to determine how she's going to manage her bookkeeping. So there's quite a few options out there. There's accounting programs that you can purchase. QuickBooks is probably the one most people know of, but there's a couple of other options. FreshBooks is one that is cloud-based. Many of them are cloud-based. ZipBooks has a free option. So make sure that you understand what your business needs are and make sure that your accounting program is compatible with that. So if you have inventory, you may not want to try a free one because it's not going to help you keep track of inventory. So just kind of think about those things when you're looking for an accounting program. If you're just going to do a few transactions a month, you can use an Excel spreadsheet. It's probably not the most recommended method, but it's better than not doing anything at all. And you may want to consider hiring a bookkeeper. A bookkeeper can help you get your chart of accounts set up if you're using something like QuickBooks, and they can show you how to enter transactions, and they can also connect your credit card and your bank account with that program, so all of those transactions are downloaded directly into your QuickBooks account. Also, if you have a POS system, that information can be downloaded directly into your accounting program, so it's going to save you a lot of time and steps. But trying to set it up on your own can definitely be a challenge. So if you don't know what debits and credits are, hire a bookkeeper and let them guide you a little bit. So here's an example of an Excel spreadsheet, and we're going to send this to you. Even if, as you're deciding what you're going to use, this is a good option just so that you're keeping track. On the spreadsheet, there's going to be a section to record income, a section for cost of goods sold. So COGS is any expense incurred directly related to the sale of the product or service. For Wendy, gas and fertilizer fall into this category. She's not going to use fertilizer if she doesn't fertilize the lawn, so it's directly related to that sale. There's another section to record operating expenses. Operating expenses are bills you pay regardless of selling one product or service. So think about insurance or marketing. You're going to pay those fees regardless if you mow a lawn. Information entered in these three sections will be populated on another page to keep track of your net income. So again, we're going to send this to you just so that you have something. We would rather you use an Excel spreadsheet than nothing at all. So why is this important? So there's a lot of information you can glean from good bookkeeping. It is the best way to make business decisions like buying another piece of equipment or bringing on a salesperson. But most importantly, you'll need to track and pay taxes. So I'm going to go back a little bit to startup costs. We always get a lot of questions about managing and recording them. Wendy bought her lawnmower, some yard signs, and gas. She did all of this before forming her LLC. She wanted to make sure she can take advantage of these expenses at tax time. Therefore, she kept all of her receipts and recorded the expenses on her spreadsheet. She can either pay herself back for those expenses or record it as an investment in the company. Either way, she's going to reduce her tax liability at the end of the year. When it comes to tax time, Wendy needs to make a choice as to how she's going to be taxed. LLCs, forming an LLC is not a tax election because it's only recognized at the state and not the federal level. The IRS calls it a disregarded entity, or basically not a thing. The LLC's main goal is to protect you from personal liability. So Wendy decides that she's going to file as a sole proprietor. This means she will pay taxes on the net income of her business. So if she chose not to form an LLC and went with just a DBA, she would be filing taxes the same way. Again, just filing a DBA as a sole prop does not give you that limited liability protection. She would include on her tax return a Schedule C. The Schedule C is where she reports all the income for the company and all the expenses. So this is basically like the profit and loss statement for the business that's going to be a schedule on your tax return. So once she gets that bottom line, the income minus expenses, the remainder is what she's taxed on. She will pay federal, state, Social Security, and Medicare taxes on that money. She's also going to pay the equivalent of Social Security and Medicare taxes again as the owner of the business. You remember the Excel spreadsheet I showed you earlier? Well, Wendy kept track of sales, cost of goods, and expenses. In this example, she sold $80,000 of services last year and spent $18,000 on cost of goods for a gross profit of $62,000. She had $13,000 in overhead expenses, or expenses just to operate the business. The net income is $49,000, and she will pay taxes on this amount. There are many expense considerations when you're operating a business, and most operating expenses are pretty straightforward, right? So if you're going to get insurance, you're going to record it as insurance expense. But there's a lot of taxes that we see, or a lot of entries that we see not done correctly. So I wanted to talk about some of those briefly, and these mistakes are basically piercing the corporate veil I mentioned. So first, they need to be ordinary and necessary. So if Wendy buys a big screen TV to watch videos about lawn mowing, this would not be considered ordinary and necessary. She doesn't need a big screen TV to mow lawns. So there's no legitimate use for this in her business. Mileage. A vehicle used for business is probably the area that most businesses do not account for correctly. If you own the vehicle personally, it is your personal responsibility to put fuel in it and to pay for repairs. It's not the company's responsibility, it's yours personally. But the company can reimburse you for mileage driven for the business. There's a lot of cell phone apps out there that can help track the mileage for your vehicle. So if the business owns the vehicle, it shouldn't be driven for personal use. If you lease a vehicle, you can write off those payments. So just to backtrack just a little bit, if you own the vehicle personally, your personal responsibility is to put gas and make repairs. You can reimburse yourself a rate, I think it's 58 cents per mile, when it's used for the business. So meals. A lot of times people will write off meals on the company, but again, it has to be a legitimate meal. You want to be sure to write down who you met with and what was discussed on the receipt. Get in the habit of tracking all receipts, not just the meal receipts. If you ever get audited, you will have receipts documented and available. You can use a receipt tracking app. So basically, you make a purchase, you can snap a picture of the receipt, and then you have it available in case of an audit. And when you see a line item on your bank statement, you know exactly what the money was used for. Sales, use, and withholding taxes are paid together to the state of Michigan. You'll have to apply for this, and we will provide you with a link to do so. Sales tax is charged for most goods and is collected if you are selling to the end user. Most businesses don't pay use tax, especially since they changed the rules. I think there was a Wayfair thing where they weren't charging sales tax, and so rules have changed. And a lot of times, if you're ordering products, sales tax is charged. But if you do purchase a product and you're not charged sales tax, you would need to pay use tax on that product on the sales, use, and withholding tax form. There's a few other areas where use tax may come into play, and if you think that you may have to pay use tax, we can certainly help you sort that out. If you're buying goods wholesale to make your product, the seller will need your certificate of exemption. Their certificate tells the seller that you are not the end user of the product that you are buying. If you're selling your products wholesale, then you would need to collect the purchaser's certificate of exemption, so you don't need to charge them sales tax. Again, sales tax is collected if you are selling to the end user. So all in all, you need to register for sales, use, and withholding tax, and you need to download the certificate of exemption and fill it out and have it available if you're buying goods wholesale from a vendor. Again, we're happy to help you with that. So taxes for online sales. Can be really tricky. So most states have rules on when sales tax should start to be collected. So if you are doing most of your business online and you're doing sales in excess of $10,000 in a different state, then it's probably going to start to be important to understand the rules of each of those states. So we have a spreadsheet we can provide you if needed that goes through all of the rules and thresholds for taxes and when you need to start collecting them. So if you're doing a couple $1,000s here and there, it's probably not necessary to do that. But if you do find yourself being very successful in other states, you can use different platforms. A couple of them, TaxJar, Avalara, and Taxify, can help you collect and remit sales tax. If you don't use any of those, and you do sell tax, you meet that threshold or you go beyond that threshold, it will be your responsibility to file and maintain, file in that state to submit those taxes. And some even have different municipalities that you would have to apply for sales tax licenses. Again, we can give you a document that'll outline which states have what thresholds. So feel free to ask if you are an online seller and you're getting busy. So income tax is calculated on your net profit, as I mentioned, and reported on your 1040. The first year you are in business, they will be paid when you submit your tax return, assuming that you made a profit. The next year, they will be estimated on the previous year's income and paid quarterly, and so on. So keep in mind, if your business is growing rapidly and you are having a very good year, you need to consider the amount of tax you will owe. So for example, if Wendy had a net loss in year one, she wouldn't owe taxes at the end of the year. But since taxes are estimated based on the previous year, she wouldn't owe taxes or have to pay them quarterly in year two either. But if she really did a lot of marketing, she got super busy, and she started to make a lot of money in the second year, even though she's not required to pay taxes, she may have an income of say $50,000 or $60,000. She would owe around $15,000 at the end of the year. So this is another good reason financial management is important. This way, she would know that she was going to be a lot more profitable than anticipated and be able to plan accordingly and maybe make those quarterly tax payments so she wouldn't have a huge tax liability at the end of the year. And maybe more taxes. If you hire employees, I recommend you consider either purchasing a bookkeeping program that can help manage payroll or hiring a payroll service. Sometimes the difference between, say, QuickBooks Payroll and Payroll Vault, which is a service, is minimal. So really look into both if you have employees. You can certainly manage it yourself, but there's several different tax agencies to report to, and different payment schedules. So I worked for 9 years. I owned a company, and then I managed the finances for a nonprofit, and I did payroll for all of those years. And every time it got to the end of the month or quarter and I had to submit payroll taxes, I was certain I was doing it incorrectly, and I would always check my work. So that can be a lot of stress. So just consider that stress level when you're determining what payroll program you want to use. So all in all, you will need to pay withholding taxes to the state, federal taxes to the IRS, and unemployment taxes to the Unemployment Insurance Agency. So here is a final checklist. Obviously, you'll have a lot more to do than what's on this list here, but this at least gives you an order to complete some of the tasks. A few reminders. 1. Have an operating agreement, especially if there's more than one member in your LLC. I think I even want to repeat that. Have an operating agreement if there's more than one employee or more than one member in your LLC. 2. Wait for your articles of organization to come back before applying for your EIN. 3. Find a bank that is startup friendly in case you need to get a loan down the road. 4. Manage your money. We're happy to help you get set up. And 5. Consider a payroll company. The stress created by managing taxes far outweighs the cost of using a service. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Spencer, and he's going to go over the articles of organization with you. Thank you.
Welcome back to my computer screen. This is Spencer Field, and I am here to help you understand the Articles of Organization, which is the document you file to create an LLC in the state of Michigan. You could file this directly with LARA, which is the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs here in the state of Michigan. You do not need any providers like LegalZoom or that type of jazz to get an LLC filed in the state of Michigan. One note is I am not an attorney, and even if I was, I'm not your attorney. So that means that if you are seeking legal advice, you probably want to go talk to an attorney. But I can help you understand what this form is. Let's get going. Article number 1 is the name of your company. 3 tips here. Number 1. The name of your company can't be being used by somebody else. You can't have the same name somebody else has. So you're going to want to check this against other names in the state of Michigan, and the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office's list of names. We'll be sending you links on how to check those. So make sure you go ahead and check that name. Number 2, you do need to include the letters LLC in your name because you are a limited liability company, and you have to tell people that. So it could be L.L.C, or it could be L, LC, whatever you want to do, but it has to be in there. Also know that this is the legal name of your company. So don't goof it up, and ensure that you are happy with the spacing and the punctuation, because this will be what's on your checks and your legal documents, all of that great jazz. The final thing to know is this name really isn't binding, because at any time you can file another document and get a new name for your business. So if you're feeling stuck on your name, just pick one and we can change the name down the road if we need to. So article number 1, the name. Article number 2 is the purpose that you are filing your LLC for. Now, you used to actually have to fill this box out. The great thing about modern times is you don't have to fill this box out, and I'd probably recommend that you don't. Here's why. If you're, I don't know, say Washtenaw Wendy, and you offer, I don't know, lawn mowing services, and all of a sudden you want to start fertilizing people's lawns, and you wrote in this box that you mow lawns for people, you are legally not allowed to fertilize people's lawns, which is a little ridiculous. So what you probably want to do is just leave this box blank. Article number 2, leave it blank. Article number 3, how long would you like your LLC to last if you don't want it to last perpetually? Most businesses want their LLCs to keep going on and on and on, so you can leave this box blank too, unless you want your LLC to poof out of existence in a particular date. Article number 4 has 3 parts to it. Number 1, the agent's name. So every LLC has to have an agent, which gets served paperwork if you're going to be sued or there's a tax problem. So as the business owner, this will almost certainly be you. So you'll probably want to put your name here as the agent. You can hire other people to be your agent if you want a little bit more privacy, but almost certainly you will be the agent here. Next, you need to put in the street address where you, the agent, can be found. This is not a P.O. box. This is either your home address, your business's address, someplace where you can physically be found if we needed to serve you paperwork, we being the royal we here. 3 is the registered office mailing address. So if you want your mail to go someplace else, Other than the street address, you can do that by putting it in here. Most of the time, it's the same place here. Article number 5 is when you would like your LLC to start. If not today, the vast majority of you want it to start today, so go ahead and leave that blank. Article number 6 is anything else you'd like Laura to know. Most people leave this blank, so feel free to leave that blank unless there's something you'd like Laura to know. You can add your signature by clicking this button. You can add any specific file instructions if you would like. Again, usually left blank. And then you put in here the information of the person who is just typing on the keyboard, which is probably the person who's listening to me fill this out. So go ahead and fill in that information. You can let Laura know how you'd like to be contacted. Email, definitely the fastest, so probably leave it with email. And then you can say if you would like Laura to speed up the process at all. Laura usually takes about 2 weeks to return this to you, so if you're feeling a little impatient and want it snappy, feel free to upgrade to faster returns if you would like. Then you click review, pay the money, and poof, you have just filed an LLC. Good on you. All right, quick review. From the top, article number 1, your name. Article number 2, the purpose, probably leave it blank. Article number 3, how long you want this to last, probably leave it blank. Article number 4, part 1, probably your name unless you hired an agent. Item number 2, where you can be physically reached, your address, not a P.O. box, remind you. Article number 3, where you want your address or your mails to go. Article number 4 we have here. What is the effectiveness date you want this to start? Probably today. You can just leave it blank in that case. And any other provisions you would like Laura to know. Click the buttons, pay the money, and poof, you are a proud owner of an LLC. All right, there you go. That's how you file an LLC in the state of Michigan. Let's get back to work now. Well, hi everybody, this is Spencer. You are seeing me live and it is now officially question and answer time. The bell has rung, the horses have bolted, and you can let the questions flow in. I am joined here by Sean Priceley of the Michigan SBDC, one of our presenters during our earlier presentation, who's going to be joining us for answering your questions. If you'd like to send in any questions, you are welcome to by using the question box in GoToMeeting. Sean and I have a nice display of all of your questions coming in, so feel free to fire those away. With that, Sean, I will throw it your way for the first question that you would like to answer.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So I have a question about, I guess there's a little bit of confusion over if I form an LLC and I have DBAs, what is the bank account name? What should the credit card name be? So remember that a DBA is a nickname for your LLC. So if you form an LLC, so Wendy Washington LLC, and she has all of those
Sean,
DBAs.
I'm just going to interrupt you real quick. It seems like there's a issue with sound, so we're just going to pause for a second and do some quick changes to our settings to update that.
Can you hear me?
I can, yep.
Okay. Do you want me to start from the top?
Once I change the presentation, I'm currently showing the screen, the video, which apparently has taken over the audio controls. So I'm going to stop sharing the video and start sharing my screen. However, I seem to not be able to do that.
I want to chime in here if I can. I had a similar problem that Spencer is having, and it looks like a couple of our audience members are having as well. If you go to the audio settings on the little webinar window off to the right, you will have an option to choose your microphone and what you are using for your speakers. So you may just have to change your speaker hardware whenever the webinar jumps between the video and the live part. I have had to do that a couple times just for today.
All right, so I think that we should be back for public engagement. If you're still having issues with the audios, do send in a chat message or a question, and our off-screen angel, Corey Schreiber, here at our office will help engage with you. Sean, could you re-engage with that question that you had and just state it out loud again for anybody who maybe didn't hear us?
Absolutely. So you can hear me, Spencer? I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So there was